For this part of the video, we're going to talk about how to identify the graph transformation when given logarithmic functions or logarithmic equation expressions. So in our first example, we have f of x equals log of x plus 11 minus 9. So since we have two numbers, there's going to be two transformations. So let's start off with the inside the parenthesis. Now we have a number with the x. So since it's inside the parenthesis and with the number with the x, that means that it's either going left or right. So if we look, it's x plus 11. So carefully, it's inside the parenthesis, it's x plus 11. So that means it's going to go to the right, left 11 units. Now, the second number, it's outside the parenthesis, it's after the x. So, again, outside the parenthesis and after the x, it's minus 9. So, since it's minus 9, or when you ever have a number outside the parenthesis and after x, it's either going up or down. In this case, minus 9 is going to go down 9 units. Alright, that's all the transformation for the first example. Our second example, g of x equals log of x minus 14 plus 6. So, again, we have a number inside the parenthesis with x, and then we also have a number that is outside the parenthesis after x. So let's work with the inside number with the x. Again, any number inside the parenthesis and with the x is either left or right. In this case, minus 14, it means it's going to go to the right 14 units. Alright, we finished with that part. Next is the plus 6. It's outside of parentheses, it's after the x, so again, the transformation would be going up or down. In this example, plus 6 means that it's going up 6 units. And that's all the transformation for example 2. In example 3, we have h of x equals the negative of log of x plus 23 minus 3. Alright, so in this example, we actually have a negative in front of log. But let's do the same steps as we did in example 1 and example 2. So we're going to focus on the number inside the parenthesis with the x. So x plus 23, that means it's going to go to the left 23 units. So left 23 units. Now, we finished with that. We're going to focus on the minus 3. That's outside the parenthesis and after the x. So minus 3 means down 3 units. Alright, so we got all the basic transformation, left, right, up, down, the translation. Now the negative, since it's in front of log, in front of the function, that means it's going to reflect over the x-axis. So reflect across x-axis. Alright. So those are the three transformations for this function. Reflect across the x-axis for the negative in front of the function. Left 23 units for the plus 3 inside the parenthesis with the x. And then down 3 units for the minus 3 outside of parenthesis after x. Now in example 4, we have j of x equal negative log of x minus 12 and plus 15. So, same thing as before, we're going to first identify the translation. So, we're going to see at the x minus 12, it's inside a parenthesis with the x. So since it's minus 12, it's going to go right 12 units. And then we have the plus 15 that's outside the parenthesis after the x. Since it's plus 15, it's going to go up 15 units. And then there's one more, that negative. So it's just like the previous example. Since the negative is in front of the function, it's in front of log, it's going to reflect across x-axis. So just like example 3, reflect across x-axis. And that's all the 3 transformation for example 4. Alright, example 5. We have, for example 5, m of x equal negative log of negative of x minus 2 and then minus 17. Now, pay close attention to this. You see how there's a negative inside a log. So it's inside the parenthesis and it's in front of x. And see how there's another set of parentheses saying that there's a transformation easy to identify. So, first, we're going to do the translation. These two right here. So again, like I said, you see how there's a parenthesis on x minus 2, and then just to show that there's a negative. Now, I'm not going to distribute that negative. I'm just going to keep it as is, so that way it's easy to identify the transformation for the x minus 2. So, since we have x minus 2, it's with the x inside the inner parenthesis. It's going to go to the right 2 units. Next, we have a minus 17. It's outside the parenthesis. It's after the x. So, since it's a minus 17, down 17 units. Alright, and let's do the same process as example 4 and 5, 5 and 6. Alright. Now we have a negative in front of the log. So again, negative in front of log. That means when there's a negative in front of the function, that means it's going to be a reflection. In this case, reflect across x-axis. But we have another negative. It's in front of x. Now even though these two negatives are in front of x, this negative, is inside a parenthesis and is in front of x, directly in front of x. So when you see that, that's another reflection. And in this case, it's in front of x, it's going to be reflect across the y-axis now. The y-axis. So again, right 2 units because x minus 2, down 17 units because of the minus 17, reflect across x-axis because of the negative in front of the function, and then reflect across y-axis because the negative is directly in front of x. Now, example 6. Similar to example 5, so we're going to do the same process. Example 6 is n of x equals negative of log of negative of x plus 8 and then plus 5. So, you see again, you have the parenthesis on the x plus 5 because we have a negative outside. So let's focus on the x plus 8. Since it's with the x and it's plus 8, it's going to go left 8 units. And then the plus 5, it's after the x, it's outside of parentheses. Since it's plus 5, it's up 5 units. Now let's take a look at the negative in front of log. It's in front of a function, so when there's a negative in front of the function, reflect across x axis. But we also have another negative. It's in front of x, directly in front of x. See how there's a negative outside the parenthesis? So a negative in front of x, it's another reflection. So reflect across the y-axis. The y-axis. Alright, to review. When it's x plus 8 inside the parenthesis, left 8 units. The plus 5 is outside the parenthesis after the x, up 5 units. And then we have a negative in front of log, reflect across x-axis. And then we have a negative directly in front of x, reflect across y-axis. So these are the 4 transformations for this example.